Welcome to Digital Learning, an initiative of Directorate of Collegiate Education, Government of Karnataka. Eloquentia 1, the first semester General English textbook is prescribed for BSc stream affiliated to Bengaluru City University. I am Nandana NJ, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Malleshwaram, Bengaluru. This session pertains to the language component, that is the grammar component, and it is titled communication. And we shall be dealing with verbal and non-verbal aspects of communication. The contents of the session: recap of previous knowledge, learning objectives, session outcomes, what is communication, types of communication, the key aspects of verbal and non-verbal communication, recapitulation, and in the end, a session of multiple choice questions to assess our level of comprehension. Let us have a recap of previous knowledge. All of us have some sort of information about anything that we are aware of. But what is that information? Is it sufficient? And how can we increase our information or increase the knowledge that we intend to acquire? So here, a few questions are provided so that the discussion of which will make us understand the next concepts much better. How do you usually express your feelings when words are not enough? It depends on, I guess, individual reactions. For us, usually we express our thoughts and opinions through words. But if we are unable to express it through words, we can express it through paintings or maybe music, etc. It depends on person to person. And there are many cases where people are unable to express even the basic feelings through words. Now, the second question: can you remember a time when someone misunderstood what you said? I'm sure this has happened to all of us at least once in our lifetimes. There has been times when we have said something and it has been misinterpreted or misunderstood as something else, and it has led to either a positive or a negative situation, or in fact, we can also say comedy of errors might have resulted because somebody misunderstood what we said. Maybe the problem might be what we said was not clear enough, or what they understood was based on their level of understanding, or maybe we were articulate not enough. The next question here is, why do you think the tone of voice matters in communication? How do people communicate across cultures if they don't share the same language? There are two questions here. Let us go in order. The first one: why do you think tone of voice matters in communication? Definitely, the tone matters in communication. If you are trying to motivate somebody, the voice should be on a on a mid segment level, trying to encourage the person, persuade the person. Imagine you are trying to give him a motivational talk at the top of your voice. By yelling at the person, you will not be motivating the person. In fact, the person will be put off by you. Likewise, when you're trying to express your happiness, imagine happiness is usually expressed at a high pitched voice. You yell, yeah, I passed, etc. Imagine your tone of the voice is very subdued and you whisper, I passed. So that also leads to rather weird consequences. So the tone definitely matters in communication. How do people communicate across cultures if they don't share the same language? This is something which I'm sure we too have gone through. There are times when people do not share the same language. So how do you communicate with them? So the answer for this being non-verbal communication, that we shall go deal in detail through the course of the session. One second. Which do you think is more powerful, what you say or how you say it? I think both the aspects are important. What we say is important, and more than that, how we say it is also definitely important, because we might say something, we might talk something, and we might forget, but the person to whom we have usually uttered those words will definitely remember. And if you have expressed those words in a manner in which they can never forget, then definitely your communication has been greatly successful. The learning objectives of this session. Learning objectives are the aims and intentions which the student can look ahead through the course of this session. The learning objectives of this session titled communication, verbal and non-verbal, are to strengthen verbal and non-verbal communication skills for effective interaction, to express ideas clearly and accurately in spoken and written form, to adapt speech and tone based on audience and situation, to develop active listening for better engagement and understanding, to understand and apply body language and facial expressions, to combine verbal and non-verbal cues for meaningful communication. So the learning objectives makes it very clear that communication is definitely the most important skill, and both verbal and non-verbal are very important. So the student can look forward to strengthening their verbal and non-verbal communication, and how to express themselves, and what is the importance of non-verbal. All these things will be, he will be able to learn. So the session outcomes are the student will be able to communicate ideas with clarity and confidence across contexts. Yes, we are not only from the exam point of view, but the student, we are readying the student also to face the global world. We are actually, readying him for the tomorrow of his life. So in that context, the student will be able to communicate ideas with clarity and confidence across contexts, to tailor language and tone to suit varied audiences. Yes, how to whom you are speaking definitely makes a lot of difference. So the language and the tone has to be tailor made based on the audiences. I shall just give you a simple example. The way you talk to your family, the same tone with which you talk to your parents, you do not use it with your siblings. Likewise, the same tone that you speak to with your friends, you do not speak to with your teachers. Okay, I hope the simple example would have made the importance of tone there. To practice active listening and provide appropriate feedback, to decode nonverbal cues like gestures, expressions, and posture, to deliver impactful messages by integrating speech and body language. First, let us try to define what is communication. Communication in Kannada means samvahana. So the definition of communication is the act of interacting and exchanging ideas with others. So communication, some sort of information or message starts from one person and it is sent through the medium. The medium differs obviously, and whether the other person has received the message, how has he decoded it, how has he or she interpreted it, and what is the feedback when it comes again. So this entire process, which involves sending and receiving messages, is known as communication. There are two forms of communication: verbal and non-verbal. For communication all over the world, this graph aptly describes the importance of both verbal and non-verbal communication. Definitely communication happens all over the world. But when you look at it, this graph gives us an interesting aspect that spoken words constitute of only 7% of communication, while 38% of communication definitely hinges on the tone of the voice, while 55%, that is the major chunk of the communication, is non-verbal cues. This is rather a surprising thing, and we always thought the voice is the most important part of communication. Of course not. Non-verbal communication or the non-verbal cues, in fact, what is not said is more important than what is said. Now let us try to look at the meaning of verbal communication. The definition of verbal communication: sharing ideas using spoken or written language. Examples of verbal communication are conversations, it could be between two people or more than 3 or 4 people; speeches, where one person addresses a target audience; interviews, where one person might be where a panel of people might be interviewing one candidate; phone calls, where people converse over the phone. These are all the examples of verbal communication. The effectiveness of verbal communication depends on clarity. There should be no sound barriers, and there should be nothing that serves as a obstacle for the smooth flow of communication. Tone. Time and again, it has been reiterated that tone is very important. And not only this, not only the person who is speaking and the right tone, but listening skills are also important. The other person should not hear, he should actively listen. There is a very major difference between hearing and active listening. So when a person for a successful communication or a verbal communication to happen, the person who is speaking should speak with clarity and the appropriate tone, while the person who is listening should do or indulge in active listening. The aspects of verbal communication: tone of the voice, emotions conveyed. Usually, as I told you, the way we talk, more than the way we talk, the emotions that are conveyed through them. Are you calm while saying something? Are you angry while you are shouting at somebody? Are you happy while expressing your thoughts? The tone of the voice is very important. Volume, loudness for emphasis or gentleness. In fact, it is rather strange. People who are able to not hear properly, if you go and yell in front of them, they cannot hear you. In fact, for such people whose hearing levels have been reduced, you have to use a much lesser tone, so the volume in all contexts is not appropriate. Imagine you are yelling at a small child or a dog. Definitely they will be, scared at the loudness that is there in your voice. At that point, the volume should be low. Clarity is very important. Pronunciation, it irrespective of any language, not only English for that matter, whichever language you are communicating, the pronunciation, grammar, and choice of words are very important. Pronunciation, because there are many words in every language for that matter, which are used in many contexts. And if you are using the wrong pronunciation, it might lead to a distorted meaning. Likewise, grammar and choice of words. There are words which are not used in certain situation, and if you end up using those words, maybe the meaning might drastically change. Feedback. Feedback refers to when the listener responds and how you adjust to the next communication. How to improve verbal communication? First, know your target audience. See, in the images that I've incorporated, the first image is that of a teacher teaching the class. So for a teacher, her audience are the children seated in the class. So always know your target audience. Adapt message based on listener feedback. After the feedback you get from the listeners, you need to adapt yourself to what you're going to communicate next. Be clear and intentional with your words. Use simple language and conform to understanding. In fact, what I would suggest is, if whatever you are saying, if you feel the other person is not getting it the right manner in which you intended, you can always confirm it with them. You can again ask them, did you understand what I told you? Or is it right that this is what your opinion is? You can reiterate what is it that you have considered as the feedback. Now, let us look ahead for nonverbal communication. What is nonverbal communication? So, definition of nonverbal communication is, obviously, verbal communication is where voice was included. But what is nonverbal? Where voice is not there. Definitely, that's the simplest definition. Communicating without words. So then how else do we communicate if voice is not there? The forms of nonverbal communication can be through facial expressions, body posture, gestures, and eye contact. Just look at the images that I have included. In the first image, the person is making a symbol like this. Usually in the Indian context, we use this when we try to say something is really good, super, etc. The film was super, like that. Eye contact, I feel, is one of the most basic aspect of communication. Even if you go to a petrol station or the fuel station, hardly a minute of communication happens with the fuel attendant there. You just tell the person, fill in that amount of fuel, and for that few seconds the eye contact is there. Eye contact establishes basic trust. Imagine you're talking to somebody and the person doesn't even look at you. So if there is no eye contact, definitely it leads that there is something lacking from their side. And what else is there in the image? The expressions, the secret smile, handshake. The way you shake hands also definitely matters. If you're, holding the person's hand for a longer time, it shows you're more than interested. And if you press their hands or you shake their hands very forcefully, it shows you're expressing anger, etc. So non-verbal communication can support or contradict verbal communication. For example, I'll tell you one thing. You imagine you're speaking to somebody you don't like. Outwardly, you're communicating, your verbal communication is like going on as expected, you're speaking nicely to the person. But your non-verbal communication, your body language, your posture, etc., clearly shows that you are not interested in speaking to the person. So non-verbal verbal communication at times can support, or it can also contradict the verbal communication. What are the key aspects of non-verbal communication? Tone of voice, pitch, pace, and emotion. For example, look at the image given here. The non-verbal communication cues are, you can listen to the way they speak, the pitch of their voice, the pace and emotion, and you can make out whether they really mean it or not. Body language, open or closed posture and gestures. Eye contact refers to shows interest and attention. I shall give you a simple example now. If you are watching my video, if I'm interesting enough, or if you find this video interesting, you would be sitting slightly leaned forward with your arms closed, listening intently to my video. So that definitely shows you are interested. And observe the image. All the non-verbal cues are given here. The eye contact, body movement. Imagine somebody is talking to you while they're fidgeting a lot, unnecessary movement. It shows they're restless, they want to leave the place. Posture. Having the defiant posture while speaking to somebody shows I'm not scared of you. Clothing, etc., facial expression, the vibe, more or less everything that has got to do with body language matters in non-verbal communication. Examples of non-verbal cues. The non-verbal cues are arms crossed, defensive or closed. I have tried to include appropriate images for the same. The first example, arms are crossed. It means, observe the image here, it means they are defensive or closed. When somebody is trying to talk to you, you don't like to listen to them. This is how you stand with your arms closed, as if to say, whatever you are saying is not going to enter me. You are trying to keep them at an arm's restraint. Second, leaning forward, interest and engagement. Just as I told you, if you're interested in something, you will sit and lean forward to convey your interest and engagement. Avoiding eye contact. This I usually see among the students whenever they have done a mistake and we try to point out their mistake, the eye contact is missing because either the feel of guilt that they have done something wrong, or it could also be nervousness or disinterest. And last but not the least, smile. Smile obviously refers to friendliness and openness, but also smiling at the wrong time. For example, if the teacher is scolding you and you have a smile on your face, that is a clear example of non-verbal communication. It means that you do not care for the teacher's words and you find the situation rather funny. So please be careful about your non-verbal cues. Importance of verbal and non-verbal communication. So both the aspects of communication, verbal and non-verbal, are definitely important. It is only when both are used appropriately, communication is successful. So work together so how are these two related? Are they complementary or contradictory? Definitely, they both are complementary. Verbal and non-verbal communication work together to express complete messages. Mismatch between them can cause confusion, definitely. Example, saying, I'm fine with a frown. Yes, that is one simple example. Your words, your verbal communication says you're all right, but then the expression on your face, the non-verbal aspect, shows that you're not. So non-verbal cues are often trusted more than words. Imagine, well, I'll give you another example. Imagine you're talking to your friend, and time and again she keeps looking at the clock. But then you ask her, "Are you getting late?" And then she says, "No," but then she keeps looking at the clock. So what are you going to trust now? The words that are coming out of her mouth saying no, or the way she repeatedly keeps glancing at the clock? So non-verbal clues are the most trusted more than words. So in the end, how to master communication? Both verbal and non-verbal skills are essential. Observe and improve your body language. Practice clear speech and active listening. Effective communication builds trust, clarity, and relationships. Recapitulation of this session. Through the course of this session, we learned what is communication, types of communication, the key aspects of verbal and non-verbal communication in detail. We also had so many examples reiterating the same points. Now let us assess ourselves. The multiple choice questions. The first one, what is the main difference between verbal and non-verbal communication? The options provided are verbal is informal, non-verbal is formal. Verbal uses words, non-verbal uses gestures and expressions. Option C, verbal is always written, non-verbal is always spoken. Option D, verbal is less important than non-verbal. So the correct answer is option B, verbal uses words while non-verbal uses gestures and expressions. Second question, which of the following is an example of non-verbal communication? Sending an email, giving a speech, smiling during a conversation, or reading a book? The answer is option C, smiling during a conversation. Yes, the conversation could be a serious one. The people involved might be talking about something serious while the other person has a smile on the face. It definitely shows the other person is thinking also about something else apart from the conversation that is occurring there. Which is one key element that affects the effectiveness of verbal communication? The options provided are the listener's age, the speaker's handwriting, tone, clarity, and volume of speech, the location of the conversation. The correct answer is option C, tone, clarity, and volume of speech. Which aspect of nonverbal communication helps show interest and engagement? Options provided are speaking loudly, making eye contact, using big words, or typing quickly. The answer is option B, making eye contact. The last question, why is it important to improve nonverbal communication skills? The options provided are because words are rarely used in daily life, because people rely heavily on nonverbal cues for meaning, because speaking is considered rude, because nonverbal communication is outdated. The answer is option B, because people rely heavily on nonverbal cues for meaning. References used for this session. Thank you.